After cancellations and delays, the nation's president and the president-elect finally hold a meeting. The duo reportedly had candid talks on various topics. Seoul and Washington weigh options over a possible North Korean nuclear test amid signs of restoring the Punggye site. The nation's top diplomat says there can be no additional sanctions. Coda won Best Picture at the 2022 Academy Awards ceremony. South Korean actress Yoon made her second appearance at the event to present an award. Hello, your week's off to a smooth start. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with our top story. At long last, President Moon Jae-in and President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol held a meeting for the first time since the election. For more on this, we have our Yoon Jung-min standing by on the line. Jung-min, do fill us in.
Sure, Daniel. So President Moon and President-elect Yoon finished their dinner just a little over an hour ago. They met for nearly 3 hours from 6 p.m., reportedly having candid talks on various issues. They were accompanied by Presidential Chief of Staff Yoo Young-min and Yoon's Chief Secretary Jang Jae-won. According to Yoon's side, the president has agreed to cooperate on the budget needed to relocate the presidential office to the building now used by the Defense Ministry after closely checking the issue. We are still waiting for more details, but it's likely that they discussed measures against COVID-19. The president-elect likely requested government support for an additional supplementary budget worth over $40 billion to compensate small businesses for losses caused by the pandemic. Also, they discussed security issues following North Korea's intercontinental ballistic missile test last week. Moon had earlier sent his national security advisor Seo-hoon to the president-elect for a briefing on follow-up measures. And speculation is right that the regime could resume nuclear tests as well. It took 19 days since the election for them to meet, delayed presumably because of politically sensitive issues. Originally, they planned to meet in mid-March, but that was canceled, reportedly because of a number of thorny issues, including a potential pardon for the imprisoned former President Lee Myung-bak. Also, that the two sides have been clashing over the president's potential appointments for key posts before his term ends, as well as the issue of the president-elect's relocation plan of the presidential office. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, thank you for that report, Jung-min. We appreciate it. Moving on, President-elect Yoon called on the people and the governments of South Korea and Japan to be forward-looking in order to improve bilateral relations. He made the remarks during a meeting with Japanese Ambassador Koichi Aiboshi on Monday, saying that dialogue could help resolve seemingly difficult bilateral issues. They also discussed Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the recent phone call between Yoon and Japan's Prime Minister. That phone took place just 2 days after Yoon was elected, and eyes are on the incoming leader's Japan policy amid strained ties over historical issues. The president-elect is reportedly seeking a prime minister who, along with key economic officials, will form a dream team for the economy. Yoon's spokesperson Kim Min-hye emphasized the handling of economic affairs as a key qualification for the PM post. But this does not necessarily mean the nominee will have a background related to the economy. The nominee will be finalized by early next month and will need parliamentary approval before taking office. Yoon's transition committee will be taking ideas from different branches by Wednesday ahead of announcing a preliminary list of agenda for the new government next week. South Korea and the U.S. reportedly concluded that North Korea disguised its latest ICBM launch, that it was an existing model, not a new and larger one, as the regime claimed. Pyongyang has also been showing signs of carrying out repair work to a tunnel at its nuclear test site. Some experts believe a nuclear test could be carried out as early as next month. Bae Eun-ji provides a deeper analysis.
Following North Korea's latest launch last Thursday, the regime had claimed it had successfully tested its new ICBM, the Hwasong-17. But South Korea and the U.S. have reportedly concluded that North Korea's latest missile actually involved its existing ICBM, the Hwasong-15. According to multiple government sources, joint analysis by Seoul and Washington showed the latest missile had 2 engine nozzles, just like the Hwasong-15 the North had tested back in 2017. But the Hwasong-17 that was first displayed at a military parade in October 2020 is supposed to have 4 nozzles. The analysis also showed the engine combustion time of the first stage rocket was similar to that of the Hwasong-15. So this means the Hwasong-15 fired last Thursday was disguised to look like the newer and larger Hwasong-17. South Korea's military reportedly believes the video of the launch released by the regime was a patchwork of earlier footage from the previous test of Hwasong-17. The North may have included footage from the one taken about 2 weeks ago when it launched Hwasong-17 but failed as it exploded right after liftoff. Seoul's military has not yet officially confirmed that it is in fact a Hwasong-17, but said it is conducting detailed analysis with a variety of possibilities in mind. Meanwhile, North Korea also appears to be preparing for a nuclear test, as there were signs of the regime digging a shortcut near Tunnel 3 at its Punggye-ri nuclear test site, dismantled 4 years ago. According to sources, the North abruptly stopped its initial construction work to restore the entrance to Tunnel 3. Instead, it was seen digging up the side of the tunnel. Some speculate that the North may even be able to resume nuclear tests as early as next month. Seoul's defense ministry also said it has detected signs of the regime repairing a tunnel at its nuclear test site.
Recently, unidentified activities were detected at Punggye-ri nuclear test site that appear to be restoring parts of the tunnel. South Korea and the US are closely monitoring the situation together.
Punggye-ri is the North's main nuclear facility. There, the regime conducted 6 nuclear tests from 2006 to 2017. In 2018, the North blew up part of the facility after leader Kim Jong-un promised to halt all nuclear tests. 배은지, Arirang News.
Seoul's top diplomat says levying additional sanctions on North Korea by the UN Security Council would be difficult. This was during a plenary session of the Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee of the National Assembly on Monday. Such comments come as China and Russia have long been opposed to slapping additional sanctions on the regime, and the request has to be agreed by consensus by the Council's 15-member North Korea Sanctions Committee. Jung Yoon also pointed out the limitations of Washington's sanctions on Pyongyang, saying even the previous sanctions haven't caused much harm to the North. Turning to the latest on Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which began more than a month ago now. Several cities in Ukraine are still under massive missile strikes by Moscow's military, while a new round of peace talks between the two countries is just around the corner. Lee Dae-hyun is live on the line for us. Dae-hyun, do tell us more about the peace talks coming up. Is a breakthrough expected?
Daniel, it's now the 33rd day of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and a new round of peace talks between the Russian and Ukrainian delegations is slated for this week in Istanbul, Turkey. This will be the two countries' 5th round of peace talks. There are conflicting reports on the exact date of the meeting, but the Russian foreign minister said on Monday during a press conference that the in-person talks will likely to be held on Tuesday after a series of video conferences. The main agenda for the talks is yet to be revealed, but in a posted video on a social media late on Sunday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said peace and the restoration of normal life are the obvious goals of Ukraine. Take a listen.
Our priorities in the negotiations are known. Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity are beyond doubt. Effective security guarantees for our state are mandatory. Our goal is obvious: peace and the restoration of normal life of our native state as soon as possible.
However, in comments made to Russian journalists earlier in the day, Zelensky had adopted a different tone, saying his country was willing to assume neutral status and compromise over the status of the eastern Donbas region as part of a peace deal. He also said any agreement would have to be put to a referendum and be guaranteed by third parties. Meanwhile, Russia's foreign ministry said on Monday that the presidents of Russia and Ukraine could meet for talks only after the key elements of a potential deal are clarified, indicating that noticeable improvements have not been made by two countries.
And Ukrainian officials are reporting Russian missile strikes overnight. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, Daniel, although the strong resistance in Ukraine has slowed some of Russia's advances, cities are still being hit by missiles. These cities include Kharkiv, Zhytomyr, Lutsk, and Rivne, while Ukrainian officials said Mariupol has been carpet-bombed. Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister said on Monday that Russian forces are trying to establish a corridor in the country's capital of Kyiv to block supply transport routes. Fights have continued in Kyiv's suburbs. The minister added that the defense of Kyiv is still still going on, which is making it difficult for Russia to take over the region. As a punishment for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, UK's Cabinet Office on Monday asked the country's public sector organizations to review their contracts with Russian and Belarusian companies and to terminate them if switching suppliers with minimal disruption is possible. It also added public money should not be funding Putin's war machine. Meanwhile, in holding off the Russians over the past month, the Ukrainian resistance has had the help of technology provided by the West. The Guardian reported on Monday that in the first week, a team of 30 Ukrainian special forces and drone operators halted a Russian convoy headed for Kyiv. Elon Musk has been providing Starlink satellite services to Ukraine, which have guided military drone strikes. Meanwhile, the UN Refugee Agency said Sunday that more than 3.8 million people have fled Ukraine. The UN also reported that civilian casualties in the country have risen to more than 2,900, including almost 1,120 deaths, though it adds that the actual figure could be considerably higher. The deaths include 140 children. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Daniel.
All right. South Korea saw a decline from Monday's COVID-19 tally, but between midnight and 9 p.m., more than 330,000 new cases were reported. Officials believe the nation has, by now, passed a peak, but severe cases remain relatively high. Choi Min-jung brings the updates.
South Korea has reported fewer than 200,000 COVID-19 cases for the first time in more than 3 weeks. The country on Monday confirmed 187,213 new infections. Health authorities said the spread of the virus is now on a downward trend after passing the peak of the Omicron wave. Given the current trend, authorities are considering whether to relax the current social distancing rules from next week. However, officials are still on high alert over the increasing number of severely ill patients and deaths. A record 1,273 patients are currently in critical condition, and there were 287 additional deaths.
The number of critically ill patients and deaths could reach a peak in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so we can't let our guard down. The number of people in critically ill condition increased by 1,130 on week. On top of this, stealth Omicron is spreading viciously around the world.
Last week, stealth Omicron accounted for 56.3% of infections, and it has now become the dominant strain. More concerning is that the number of infections among people aged 60 and above is increasing rapidly. People in this age group accounted for around 10% of infections in early February, but as of Sunday, the figure has doubled to nearly 21%. The age group accounts for 85% of those in critical condition and 95% of deaths. Against this backdrop, authorities have maintained the country's pandemic risk level at its highest point for 4 straight weeks. Meanwhile, authorities have signed a deal to buy 200,000 additional courses of Pfizer's Paxlovid. With those extra pills, the country has now secured a total of 1.2 million courses of oral medication. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Elsewhere around the world, China has tightened measures to tackle an Omicron spike by imposing a citywide lockdown across its main economic hub, Shanghai. It will be a 2-part phase lockdown by region, comprised of a 5-day lockdown in the Pudong Financial District and nearby areas until Friday. The second part of the lockdown begins on Friday for the next 5 days in the downtown area west of the Hangpo River. It will be China's largest lockdown in 2 years after its daily COVID-19 cases reached over 6,200 on Sunday. Authorities say it's the biggest spike since February 2 years ago, when some 15,000 people were infected in Wuhan. Experts fear the infection is on the upward trend, given that the daily cases top 5,000 for 3 straight days and is showing no signs of slowing down. The cost of wheat and raw materials like plastic, metals, and fuel have all risen recently, mostly due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Consumers are scaling back their spending in response, and experts fear this may push the economy into a recession. Kim Hyun-sung helps us look beyond the digits.
Food prices have risen beyond what many can afford. According to the Korea Rural Economic Institute's overseas grain market information, wheat futures on the Chicago Board of Trade as of March 25th have risen 43% since the last of last year to $405 a ton. The skyrocketing prices have left many local bakeries and eateries worrying about their livelihoods. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has been the driving force behind the rise in prices, with those two countries seen as the world's breadbasket, providing almost 30% of global wheat exports. But it's not just the price of this pivotal grain that has seen a rise due to the war. The prices of fuel, plastics, and metals have also soared. This has forced consumers to scale back their spending. According to Bloomberg, companies worldwide are cutting back their operations due to rising costs of energy, and consumers are squeezing out discretionary spending, like dining out or buying luxury goods. One expert says that if this trend grows, the world could tip into stagflation.
With a lot of liquidity out in the markets, wages have risen, and with the crisis in Ukraine, raw materials costs and fuel costs could keep rising for a while. If inflation worsens, people might continue to buy less and the economy might see stagflation.
The worsening situation is affecting Korean manufacturers as well. According to the Federation of Korean Industries on Monday, 1 out of 3 Korean manufacturing exporters have suffered a blow to their funds compared to 2021. Their survey shows that 37.5% of them said that their situation has worsened due to the rise in costs, including materials and labor expenses. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
So far this year, South Korea's energy imports have soared by more than 85%, with oil and gas prices at historic highs, both because of recurring demand and supply disruptions because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. All of Korea's oil is imported. It's been enough to turn the country's trade balance to a deficit, and consumers are taking a direct hit. Min Suk-hyun explains further.
South Korea is spending more on its energy imports this year. According to the Korea Customs Service on Monday, imports of oil, natural gas, and coal between January 1st and March 20th stood at $38.5 billion, up 85.4% from a year earlier. Crude oil rose nearly 70% on year, while natural gas surged 92% and coal jumped more than 150%. The rise in energy imports was mostly attributed to an increase in global commodity prices following the global economic recovery from the pandemic, as well as Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia is one of the largest producers of oil and natural gas, accounting for about 12% of the world's crude oil and around 70% of its natural gas. Market watchers say that soaring energy prices are not only believed to squeeze the profits of local companies, but are also expected to burden the country's overall trade balance and consumer prices.
If the prices of imported goods rise, the total cost of imports increases, and this will negatively affect the country's current account. Also, there's a possibility that high import prices will add to inflationary pressure.
As of March 20th, South Korea so far posted a trade deficit of $5.98 billion, a sharp shift from a $6.7 billion trade surplus recorded over the same period last year. Meanwhile, in February, consumer prices hit 3.7%, growing more than 3% for the 5th consecutive month. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News.
Seoul announced there will be more direct funding for small and mid-sized companies and startups to help them with R&D. In a press release on Monday, the city said it's going to invest 38.3 billion Korean won, which is around $31 million, with a focus on next-generation industries. 1/3 of the budget, about $11 million, will go to companies in fintech and ICT, which is almost $2 million more than last year. The funding in direct payments will be for R&D, and they'll get expert consulting. Details on eligibility will be announced later by the Seoul Business Agency. At the 2022 Academy Awards, Coda won Best Picture. South Korean actress Yoon made her second appearance at the Oscars to present an award this time. There was also a moment dedicated to Ukraine by Mila Kunis, who was born in that country before fleeing with her family when she was just 7. Shin Yeon brings the highlights from the event.
Stars hit the red carpet to attend the 2022 Academy Awards. This year's Oscars was held on Sunday local time at Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, where stars including South Korean actress Yoon made their presence known. Yoon had been awarded Best Supporting Actress at last year's Oscars for her performance in the movie Minari. She was the first Korean ever to win an acting prize at the Academy Awards. This year, she came to present an award. Though she only appeared on screen for a few minutes, she surprised the audience by using sign language to present the award for Best Supporting Actor to deaf actor Choi Kotser. Choi Kotser became the first deaf actor to win an Academy Award for his performance in the movie Coda. The name Coda is short for Children of Deaf Adults, and the film became the first streaming service content to win Best Picture. It tells the story of a girl who's responsible for helping her deaf family remain connected with the world, while also seeking her own dreams. This film has been hailed for taking a much-needed step forward for deaf representation in Hollywood, as most of the actors are deaf and use American Sign Language. While Coda's win marked a significant step for both inclusion and the streaming industry, the Oscars ceremony was overshadowed when actor Will Smith slapped comedian Chris Rock, who made a comment about his wife Jada Pinkett Smith's hairstyle. Minutes later, Smith received the Best Actor award for his role in the movie King Richard. Following the bombshell moment, the Academy tweeted that it does not condone violence of any form. 신예은, Arirang News.
Some members of BTS have left Las Vegas to attend the 64th Grammy Awards, which are slated to be held on Sunday. However, J-Hope, who tested positive for the coronavirus, and Jungkook, who left earlier due to his own schedule, did not show up at Incheon International Airport on Monday evening. J-Hope is expected to leave after he has been released from self-isolation later in the week. The boy band was nominated for Best Pop Duo or Group Performance for the upcoming event. Should BTS bag an award, they would be the first K-pop artist to win a Grammy. This is a third straight year BTS is to take the stage at the Grammys as a performer. BTS will hold 4 live concerts in Las Vegas on April 8th, as well as 9th and the 15th and 16th.
Warmer spells are in store tomorrow, but big contrast in temperatures will continue. Most regions will see a temperature gap of 10 degrees or more. Under such conditions of fluctuating temperatures, our immune systems become weaker. Please take extra care of your health at this time. Meanwhile, the air is circulating at a fairly fast rate. We'll have no concerns about fine dust particles or yellow dust tomorrow. The entire nation will see air quality standing in the normal to good category. For Jeju Island and the South Coast, gusty winds and high waves are in the forecast. Please stay away from water and avoid fishing or boating. Sunny conditions will dominate for the morning hours. Seoul will start up at 4 degrees Celsius. Daytime highs will be 2 to 5 degrees higher than today. Seoul will get up to 16 degrees, Daejeon 18. Daegu and Gyeongju will reach 19 degrees. On Wednesday, nationwide showers are in the forecast. After the rain, conditions will get much breezier. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
These are the stories we're following at this hour. From all of us here at Arirang News, thank you for watching.